itself and reinvent itself, and I think that's what's driving sort of the new PR. I think it makes it harder, and I think it makes it easier. I think it's easier to approach reporters who were unapproachable before. It's harder because there's so much approaching them. I mean, things used to be crowded, but now it's just everybody's overloaded. I mean, anytime you're on Twitter, it's just like, oh my God. So getting in front of reporters, I think, is harder, but that just means you have to be clever and you have to have your message on point, if you can have a message at all. You do have to, and this is what's not so, I mean, some of the principles from PR are the same. Strategy drives it, like Dave was saying, strategy drives it all. Totally lost my train of thought. What else is the same? PR is not dead. Relationships, it's still all about relationships. It always was. I read a lot on some of the thought leader blogs about PR 2.0, and it's as if relationships are a new thing, and all of a sudden we need to be, paying attention to what reporters are writing about. Well, that's what PR was all about to begin with. So that hasn't changed. The philosophy is still the same. And outputs don't count. Outcomes is what everybody's looking for. So it doesn't matter how hard you try. A client's going to measure your success on what you get, and they still want the Wall Street Journal, but they also want everything else now. So it's changed.
And I think the same holds true on the creative side. Just speaking for creatives, I mean, a great story is going to play in social media just like it's going to play in traditional media. It always has, always will. Getting into the capabilities discussion, I think creatives more than ever need to be more strategic than they ever were, and almost more focused on the channel than they were before. Just because I think the social space in particular, it's just more nuanced as to the appropriateness of marketing messages, and so as creatives, we need to really take that into account. And I think in certain cases, creatives need to subjugate their creativity to a certain extent. I'm trying to think of an example like the Fiesta movement by Ford, for instance. Ford's a client of ours. We didn't work on that campaign, but the idea of you're handing over your car to 100 agents, and they're going to tell you what happens, and it's going to be broadcast live world. I think it's a great idea. Is that where's the beef? Is that the crazy tagline? Is that just do it? No, but I think for creatives, the idea comes from different places now. They need to be, in some cases, more practical, more utility focused. But again, there's always going to be the need for great storytelling. But there's a need to be more strategic.
Spill your past. That's a good tagline. They should take that. It's interesting hearing that Windows story because I think on the client side, if PR is dead, then the idiom ignorance is bliss still exists. I'm not saying it's profitable or the right way to go, but if you're not living in the Twitter world and don't understand the power, and you got your head in the sand of this world, it's pretty easy to keep it there. So I think for the agencies out there, if you're doing biz dev or sales or account stuff, trying to get people to get it, it's how do you bring them along? And honestly, if that story is repeatable, that's a gem. But it is, because it's that notion of how do you as a client what's that? It's bumping now. So, but how do you as a client sort of get to a place of understanding this power if you're not from it? I mean, I think that's the really golden moment of how do you become a great agency, is how do you convince people of the power and then take them there. And if you can't get that first part, it's really easy to stay out of the game.
So, I'm going to back you up here, Teri, because I don't think PR is dead. And I tell people how our handoff with PR works because we spent about 6, 8, 10 months sort of working this out with my PR team, which we still have. Yeah, it's changed, but it's not dead. So in 140 characters, you cannot tell a compelling message. You certainly cannot deliver a pricing strategy, a dispute strategy, a competitive strategy. You can't do that in 140 characters, and we're totally realistic about that. Our handoff is, this is how PR and I work it. PR is everything that happens above the fold, and my team is everything that happens in the comment section. And that's sort of that's how it works for us. So an example of that is New York Times. New York Times writes about Windows, so they put a story in the New York Times blog, and they say, whatever they say, that story is landed by our PR team through all the traditional PR mechanisms. Everything that happens, the 250 comments below, where they say they love the idea, they hate the idea, they think Windows is stupid, they think Apple is stupid, that is where we actually monitor, engage, and message what we want to say. So PR is not dead. It's actually a really strong partner of ours. I sat down with PR just today, and we talked about what are we going to land next week. So PR says, I'm going to land next Wednesday, for example, a pricing strategy. And if you land a pricing strategy, what does that look like at 140 characters? Because my team owns our Twitter feed, and they own our press release. So that's, they create a video, and we talk about how we're going to push that through our social media channels.
Question then. Does PR then get that information from that social channel, from the comments, and do they get a sense of that zeitgeist and what the audience is talking about? Or is it just about sort of like managing the comments?
Take it.
Is the question,
The question is, what do you do with the comments?
What do you do with the comments?
A community manager, or are you
awesome.
creating business intelligence?
Okay,
PR people?
I can answer that question. I could not answer what I thought the question was. Thought they were asking me something.
I'm sorry, I used the word zeitgeist.
No, cool. No, that's cool.
That always
That's cool.
creates
I got it. We do manage the comments. We actually monitor, manage, and engage in comments. Just for Windows, not the PR team, but the Windows social media team and my partner agency. We are very interested in what customers think. I report weekly on what the sentiment on my brand is. I can tell anybody in this room how people feel about Windows on the web, how they talk about it, what my sentiment is, how I feel about that sentiment, what my engagement factor is in that sentiment, the conversations I want to engage in, the ones I choose not to engage in. We do all of that. So what happens when they report up with PR is PR has very traditional, for us it's called a prime number. I don't know how they get it, but it's called a prime number. Yeah, so just to stick with the New York Times example, they put out a press release and they get however many pickups they get, 100, I don't know. So they report this prime number, and then they say we got 100 and whatever, people picked it up and wrote about it, and then they say, so that means success or whatever. For them, not success. For me, I'll say awesome, but by the way, 54% of those people actually hated that message and they think X. So we deliver it together, and my message is usually not quite as popular as their message, because I have three metrics that I give my executives. I give them sentiment, I give them reach, and I give them volume. So I can tell you how many people actually talked about it, what they felt about it, and how far that reach went on the web.
Cool. And just as a follow-up, you basically were talking entirely about the press, and isn't PR really about the public? And where you're talking about sort of like connecting to the public, it's really sort of like thinking about your audience and engaging with the audience. And the creative was talking about channels. And once again, is it being less creative and focusing on channels, or focusing on audiences and what audiences are interested in, figuring out how to creatively engage with them via channels? So I'm just trying to see, in some ways people are often looking at social media as a way to, that will fundamentally change agencies, and sort of like bringing agencies down. It's a great opportunity to take your existing skill set and your capabilities and move into really new, innovative, creative spaces. So
Yeah,
I just felt like a downer. So what's the positive?
Well, to your point, it comes down to customer insight. It comes down to the audience. My point was just that creatives, I don't think, are used to having to temper the message based on the appropriateness of the channel. Because I think social media, you're getting into that space where you dance lightly. Is acquisition the right thing there? Do you want to hit them over the head with a strong marketing message, or is it about building brand loyalty? We need to temper our message. Is